You got a problem with mice or rats inside or around your property? This video is just for you. This content is for educational purposes only and reflects personal experience. Always follow product label instructions and local regulations when using a pest control products. Misuse of insecticides or rodenticides can be hazardous to people, pets, and property. When in doubt, consult a licensed pest control professional. Viewer discretion and responsibility are advised. I'm going to talk how to get rid of these rodents from 4 decades of being a pest management professional and owning my own business. So let's get into how to get rid of mice and rats. Let's talk about the outside first. That's usually the most important part to stop them from coming indoors. So let's dive into it. This is called the Protecta Evo Express. This is used on the outside. Very sturdy, and I'll show you what's on the inside of this. Now again, guys, when you're handling pesticides or rodenticides, I recommend that you wear gloves. I'm not in this situation because I'm not doing an application, but it's something that you need to do when you're handling rodenticides, pesticides, or handling a dead rodent. So let's talk about that. This has got a key. It's got a hole on it that goes on the side over here of this station. And what you do, if I can ever find the hole here, there we go. You just put this in there, push in, and it opens up this bait station. Inside this has got rodenticide. Now, I have this around my back door. So it's already had bait that's actually been in here for a while and is doing its job, because I'll show you why here in a second. So let's talk about this little station right here. This thing is heavy. First of all, I'm going to take the bait out for now for demonstration purposes. And again, I will wash my hands after I get done with this. I'm just not going to wear gloves doing it. These have rods in them right here. And as you can see, there's 4 little holes where those go. So when you get this from the place you're going to buy it from, which I'm going to leave a link for you guys in the description box and in the comment section, I'll pin it there. This will come with all this stuff. So I'm going to take this out, and it's got a little tag here that you can put what's inside it. Several different rodenticides. You just circle the one you're using, and it's got a little date label card here where you can also date on there when you use it, or when you've maintenanced or serviced this, even around your house. That way you'll know, you won't forget. This has got a very large stone, as you can see, that is actually formed to fit the inside that station. Then this goes on here. Typically I leave this card between those because mice, if you put this on the top, mice like to chew this and eat this, and they'll chew that card up. So I put it down here. Then I put my rods back on. They fit on there very nicely, and they're snug once you put them in there. Now the bait, when you get it, it looks like this. This one has not been touched. See the hole in it? That goes down on the rod. So it slips right down on it. You can either put 4 or 8 of these on a station. I typically will use 8. I want plenty of bait load in there, shall we say. So I will put these back in here. And you can see the way this is rounded off. Look at the difference between the two. That means, I'll show you this one's a little better. That means that this one over here has had mice in it. And they will usually only eat a lethal dose, which means they won't sit there and eat the whole thing. So those go back on the rods, and this one's been eaten, this one's been eaten, and this one has been eaten. You can see where they're rounded off around it instead of a square block. This material right here is called Contract, and I'll put a link for this company that sells all kinds of stuff. So I'll put a link in there for you guys. I also have a disclaimer on this. Read the label. The label is the law. So when you get a rodenticide or a pesticide in, read that entire label. But again, I'll have a disclaimer on my channel for that because I've had 40 years experience handling this kind of stuff. You don't have to be afraid to do it. You just got to use caution, read the label, and do what the label says. If you do that, you're going to be good to go. So again, wear your gloves when you're handling this stuff. But as you can see, this thing comes back down, take the key out, and it locks down very solidly. Now, typically, where these holes are on the sides, I will put that against the house. So if this is the house, I want these holes facing the house or the structure, whatever you're trying to protect. That way, mice use their whiskers to follow a direction to get to where they're going. So if they're traveling along a wall on the outside of the house, they'll typically will do that. They'll use those sensory whiskers for direction and balance. Same thing with a cat. They do the same thing. Dogs I'm not sure of because I have 3 inside cats. So this is your protection you do around the outside. How many do you need? I typically will put 4 around my house. I'll put one by the back door, which you can see there. I'll put one on the side of the house. I'm on a crawl space, so I make sure them vents are all closed in the wintertime. And I put one in the front, and I put one on the other side. So I will typically use 4 of these around my house. Now, if you've got a much larger house, say, I don't know, say it's 3,500 square feet or bigger, or even a pole barn or a barn itself, you'll probably want to use more. You could use up to 8 to 10 of these around a property. Typically, you want these about every 30 feet apart, but so just put them on each side of the house, all 4, and you'll be covered pretty well. Now, when I was in the industry, I retired in 2020 and sold the company to my son, and my grandkids work for him now, so there's my legacy. But when I got called to a property, homeowner's house, first thing I want to do is an inspection. The key to any rodenticide or rodent or insect problem, you got to do a thorough inspection. You got to find out, you got to think like a mouse sometimes or think like a rat. Where would I go if I was in that house? Where am I going to get into that house? So inspection is critical. You go around the house, you look for all the water lines, gas lines going into the house, and if there's at least 1/8 of an inch, because that's all it takes for a mouse, size the width of a dime. A mouse and a rat does not have a backbone, so as soon as they squeeze their head in, they're coming in. So typically I will look for areas around the soffits on the top of the house, make sure there's not a soffit come loose where they can climb up that wall, and they can climb, and then go into the attic as well. So typically once they get in your house, you'll find them in the attic as well, because they'll follow wires all the way up, or when they actually drill these holes for these houses, they make that hole much bigger than the wire. So what happens, the mouse will enter around that wire to get to where he's going. That could be horizontally or that could be vertically. So keep that in mind. Mice also, and rats and squirrels, they have to gnaw all the time to keep their incisors or their teeth dulled, because if they don't, their teeth keep on growing and it'll kill them. So when you see a wire that's been compromised with gnawing, you'll see the gnaw marks on it. They like that because there's a waxy layer on there. It's easier for them to gnaw. They'll gnaw on different things, furniture legs, whatever, but they have to keep those incisors dulled. So that's typically how I do this on the outside of the property. Again, this certainly helps me stop them from coming inside. So when I go out to a customer's house, I'll carry steel wool with me. I'll carry an SOS pad if I don't have steel wool. I'll carry little screening with me. Some screen that don't rust. So you can get some copper mesh, won't rust on you and look horrible once the rain starts hitting it. And I'll do that, like I'll seal around a bigger hole. I'll just seal that right to the house if I can. And that will seal that opening. But typically you can seal most openings with steel wool. That seems to be the best. Don't use caulk because they will gnaw right through caulking. So make sure you use something that's got a steel fiber because they can't chew that steel. So we'll get into inside areas where to seal here in just a second. Now you want to look under your doorways on the thresholds to make sure there's not more than a 1/2 inch gap, which you don't want anyway to keep the cold air out in the winter. You want to make sure that you need if you need a new threshold or a new sweep to put on that door. I've done that before too. I've done sweeps on doors on the bottom. That's called an exclusion or an exclusionary service. Now, I'll get to a couple national companies, what they do. And I'm not going to mention a name because I work for one of them. Many, many years ago, until I had my own company I owned for 17 years. They will go out the house and the first thing they do is go to the attic. If they see one dropping on that insulation, they will tell that customer they need all that insulation vacuumed out of the attic and blow new insulation in. That's a bunch of bull crap. The companies do that, and they will charge anywhere from $15,000, not $100, $15,000 to $25,000. I had our church called and had a lady, an elderly lady, a widow, on a fixed income, that a national company wanted to charge her $25,000 to do that work. And that's including the rodent control. But most of it is that attic, because they know somebody that old especially isn't going to look up into that attic. They may take a camera up and take some pictures, but guys, it would have to be such a horrific infestation that you need to remove that insulation out of that attic. That's just ridiculous. But again, that's what the nationals do. They'll take care of your rodent problem, but at very high cost. If I had to go out on an insulation or on a job that is a rodent job, and I look in the attic and I don't see a need to do any extreme, I don't believe in the removing the insulation and adding new. I just don't. But I'll look at it, make sure that it's not got mice droppings everywhere, and I'll put some bait stations, these which I'll talk to you in a minute about, in the attic. So that will give them areas to feed up there, and then I will explain what we do on the inside. So that's how we do the outside. Inspection is critical. You got to figure out where they're coming in and then go from there. So that's how we do the outside. So let me put this aside. And again, you can see this little key. All you do, and I'll show you this, it just opens it. You just put it in there and then close it. Simple, easy peasy to do. So let's talk about inside. What do we do on the inside? We already know we've got the outside taken care of. Again, inspection is the most critical thing that I can do. I'm going to get a nice strong flashlight. I'm going to start looking for droppings. Now, sometimes I will use an ultraviolet light to where I can see droppings maybe in the dark where you can't see them unless it's the daytime. Sometimes I do that. Let's talk about my first line of defense when I install an inside rodent protection. And the first thing I use is snap traps. Your good old fancy snap trap. Now there's several designs out there. I really like the Victor. They seem to do the best. Now you just don't want to put peanut butter, cheese, Hershey syrup just on here, because if you do, they will set off to the sides and the front, and they'll lick that off, and that trap is not going to trigger. So what I do to stop that from happening, I take a little thing of cotton, like a cotton ball, and I will set that inside of that little notch coming out there that you can see. I will put that inside there. Then I will either take peanut butter, Hershey syrup, and there's also softer gel baits that you can use, rodenticide gel baits that squeeze right out of a bottle. So you can get them online too. But I'm going to take my peanut butter, I'm going to take my Hershey syrup, I'm going to take whatever, and I'm going to put it on this cotton ball because they can't get that bait off that cotton ball. Rather it be peanut butter or whatever. So what you do is once you get all your stuff on here that you're going to use, or you can do it after, just be careful, you're going to want to set this snap trap. And how this one works, on the bottom, it's got a little notch that sets that. And what you want to do is set this right against the wall. So if this is the wall out here, or let's use it a little easier. If this is the wall, you don't want it parallel with the wall. What you want to do is flip this perpendicular against the wall. That way you've got mice can travel from both directions to get to that bait. They can smell that from a good distance, believe it or not. So that's basically, I'll put somewhere 10 to 20 of those in a house. Now I put them where cats and dogs can't get to them. I'll put them under kitchen cabinets, closets, things where an animal's not going to travel. A couch I may pull out and set it if the couch is not too low, where it'll set that off. So I will put that in areas where I know mice are traveling. What you're going to look for again is droppings. Now you're going to want to vacuum all them droppings up. Wear a face mask or a dust mask when you do that, because if those are dry droppings, that material comes airborne, and you don't want to breathe into that dust from that rodenticide dropping, a rodent dropping. How do you know what's fresh and what's not fresh? You just simply take a screwdriver or a pencil, and where that dropping is, you push it. If it's soft, that's a new dropping, recent, within a couple days or day or two. If it's really hard, that means it's an old one. You can break that right in two. Now, mice have droppings that are about, maybe 1/8 of an inch, and they have pointed ends on both sides, where a rat has a larger dropping and they got blunt ends, like you chop it off. That's the difference between the two. So basically, that's kind of how we address our instant kill, I call it. And what'll happen, this thing is so sensitive, I'm just going to touch this. Boom. Get his head every time, usually. So that's how we put out snap traps. Now, I will come back in about a month, maybe 2 weeks, depending on the heavy infestation is inside, and I'll replace those quickly. A lot of times I'll tell customers, check it. If you got a lot of dead rodents on the snap traps, call me. Then I'll be right back out to fix the problem. These are called resistant tamper units, RTUs, made by the same company as the big one, called Protecta. You can almost drive over these two because they are so solid. Now, this is pretty safe for animals getting in this. Cats and dogs, they are not going to be able to get into this. But what you have this little key that comes with it. They're usually taped right to the top when you buy them. You usually get these in a case of 12. I used to pay $1.80 a piece for these back in 2020. I'm assuming they've went up since then. So expect the cost to rise. I will put a link to the company again in the description box, and I will put it in the comment section. I'll pin it there. Again, this key opens the top of this. See them little notches right there? You just open that up. It pops right open. And do you see this bait? That is the same rodenticide as in the other one. See where it's been chewed on? That's because on this bait station, there's a little hole right here. Because when you put that in there, when you close that, they can't get to the top part, but they can get through the hole to get to the bait itself right there. So you'll find droppings in there, and you'll never find a mouse in there. He'll go off and die somewhere. I've never had a problem in a house where they die in the walls and it stinks so bad. That's just not going to happen. But if you find a dead rodent somewhere, you know he's been into this rodenticide. And basically, you just close this back up. Typically, again, I want these two holes against the wall. If this is the wall, I want that mouse to be able to use his whiskers or follow that direction to get into this bait station. Then he'll go inside it and go into that opening to feed on that. So again, you can buy these online. You can buy the other one online. It's not that expensive. So you'll get keys with them. You'll get your key for your bigger one. And again, you can also place these right in the corner of a room. See how this little thing is? You just stick it right in the corner. Because at that point, when it's stuck in the corner, these two holes are still exposed where they will go into it and actually feed on that rodenticide. So that's basically how we take care of rodents on the inside. Now, one mouse can have 8 to 10 offspring every 30 days. That multiplication process becomes huge after a while. Now, between mice and rats, mice are curious. They like to see what's new in their environment. So they'll go to the snap traps quick. They go to this pretty quick. Where rats are cautious. They don't like to go into a new environment like that big station. They may wait a while. So you may want to just take that bait out of there for maybe a week if you got a rat infestation coming in. You're going to want to have no bait in those big boxes and let them get used to going in and out of there. They'll go in it and they'll get used to it. You may put some corn in there or something that may be part of their diet, grease, anything. And they'll get real comfortable to go in there because there's no poison in there or rodenticide. At that point, when you know they've been feeding, then you put those little bait blocks on the pins. That way, on those rods. That way they know that that's a safe place to go, and then it starts killing them off. Now, again, rats can be a little more finicky than mice. Rats will typically travel 30 feet from a nest, sometimes a little more, where a mouse will typically stay in a range of 8 to 10 feet around the perimeter of where they're nesting. So you want to try to find them nesting areas. They could be sometimes in a kitchen cabinet. You'll want to put these under the kitchen cabinets along with the snap traps. You're going to want to put these where we know they're going to travel, because if you've got openings from your pipe going into, say, a crawl space or into a wall, make sure you take steel wool to put around that opening, because they will, if you caulk that, they'll just gnaw right through it. So take steel wool, SOS pads, stuff that tightly around that hole. That could be a dryer vent. You want to check your dryer vent, because that flap sometimes gets stuck open because there's lint that builds up around the corners, and that flap stays open. That way mice can enter through that and still get into the house. They'll chew right through the plastic covering of that hose that's going to the wall. So you're going to want to make sure that that stays free, where that flap opening closes every time you're done with the dryer. Look for around that opening where it's screwed into the wall. Make sure there's no gaps. That's where mice can enter, so you want to take steel wool and stuff all those areas. Not just look down when you're trying to find exclusion or somewhere to seal. Look up. If you see an area on a soffit, you may have to call somebody to do that. I don't know. But you need to make sure that that opening is closed, because those mice are going to enter those areas. Rats are good climbers too, but they don't climb, I don't think, as much. I'd say they will. They will climb pipes and stuff in a commercial facility. Or again, that's just my thoughts on how to take care of rodents around a house or a business. It's not rocket science. You can do it yourself. Leave a comment down in the comment section. I will help you out the best I can. I answer every question that comes in. What do I use? Got a person texted me last night or commented on a video that he lives in New York City. Well, that's a challenge right there with roaches. That's mostly apartments. So that'll be another video that I'll have to discuss, that type of elimination of roaches. But this is mainly for residential. You can use it on commercial too. Those outside bait stations we use on commercial all the time. But you want to make sure that you inspection first, then you come up with a game plan. Where do I seal all the openings? How do I seal all the openings? And then at that point, you can either call a professional if you think it's overwhelming for you. Always get 3 bids. If you want to call a national company, that's okay. Make sure you get 2 other bids before you make that decision. 20% of the public calls a national company and they call nobody else because of all the massive advertising. When you get into smaller companies, we got more personal touch. We can answer your call right away if you've got a problem. We're a national company. You're calling a call center. A call center. One's in Atlanta and the other one could be anywhere. And you'll have to call that call center to get that message down to the branch, then down to a service manager, then to the customer. Typically, with a smaller company, when you call that phone, you're typically either going to get somebody in the office, or when I ran the company, I did it with myself and another guy, I answered that phone directly. That way, if I'm in the area, I'll get out and take care of that customer that day. That's very, very important when you talk about customer service. Look at all the reviews before you hire that company. Look at all the bad things I see on national companies about the ripoff of what they're doing for customers on all the insulation removal. I'm not saying one way or the other if it's needed or not. So I'm not going to be bashing them companies, but I think it's overkill, and I think it's just a way for them to get more money out of that customer. $25,000 versus $1,500 on initial, I think that's pretty inexpensive, if you ask me. So anyway, that's my thoughts. If you got any questions, put them down in the comment section. Any comments that you want to put down there. If you're another pest control professional, if you've got any other ideas that you would like to share, put them down there, because there's things that I have probably forgotten in 40 years. And there's a lot in 40 years that I did not learn about the industry. But I continually was keeping my license up, because you have to have it in most states. Liability insurance if you're going to own a company. But you got to make sure that you stay involved with technology coming out, newer baits. There's now apps that come out for your phone where if that bait has been compromised in that station, it'll alarm your phone that there's something that's broken, a wire that came into that or whatever, and then you'll know you've got activity in station 13 around that property. So that's kind of unique. Those are things that are changing our industry. I hope this video has been helpful. It's been very long. I didn't really want to make a 27-minute video, but I hope it's helped. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you thought about the video. Did it help you? And then, like I said, I'll put those links down for you. So yeah, share, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I'll see you on the next one.